I'm going to be talking about visual effects and filmmaking with visual effects. A lot of the visual effects type work I'm going to be talking about is independent stuff, so hopefully it'll fit to what you guys are into, but also I'll be talking about the high scale stuff as well. Give you a little background about who I am. So, yeah, you guys can see that fine. So anyway, so I'm an experienced visual effects supervisor. I'll explain what that is in a minute. But basically, you know, I've had 13 years in the industry working on major films like Batman, and as well as working on BBC stuff and commercials and music promos. So basically, I do all the cool stuff you see on screen that we can't do on camera. So basically, you know, in this 1 hour of the presentation, which also I'm going to keep like 15 minutes at the end, so you guys can ask as many questions as possible. I advise you to really do ask as many questions, to rinse me as much as you can today. So it's all good. Okay, firstly, a lot of people get this misconception about visual effects. They think, oh, it's really expensive. Oh, you need lots of money to do visual effects. Or your film needs to have like monsters or Transformers, robots, you know, all the cool stuff. That's completely crap. Visual effects is not really designed just to do all the cool stuff. It's also designed to save money as well. Most of the shows, I would say 7 out of 10 times, I get asked to do visual effects is to fix stuff that's usually happening during the shoot, or to do invisible effects. So, you know, there'll be times where I show stuff on screen, go, hey, look at my work, and they're like, what did you do? And that's a compliment, because if you can't see the visual effects, then I've proven the optical illusion. Well, of course, there's other types of visual effects. There's the full CGI effects where there's big monsters coming out of infernos. That sort of stuff is obviously visual effects, but that serves a different story. And one of the things I want to talk to you guys about also is how visual effects plays a very important part in storytelling. It's not just about pretty pictures or making that beautiful trailer. It's about, it plays a big serious role in the whole filmmaking process, right from pre-production right to post. So I might as well show you some stuff, because it's visual effects. I might as well show you some visual effects shots. Is my thing okay, or is it? Okay, I'm a bit paranoid. So let me show you some examples of stuff that I've done in the past, which kind of helps you understand sort of visual effects I'm talking about. But before that, I'll show you my show reel so you get an idea sort of stuff I do. That was a tease. Here we go. So this is a mix of stuff I've done for film, broadcast, commercials. So this is a full CGI tennis ball you see in there, because they couldn't shoot really high speed. I mean, you can shoot 1,000 frames, but this is like really, really super slow. So there you go. It's a mix of feature film, TV stuff, some stuff you might have seen, some stuff you might not have seen. But this gives you an idea of the scale of visual effects, you know, the requirements required. You know, something like that's full CGI, whereas the other stuff are quite invisible type effects. So that's sort of visual effects I'm going to be talking about, and that's the sort of stuff I do. Switch back to lovely PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, before I start talking about, you know, tips that will save you VFX, I think you guys need to know, what does a visual effects supervisor do? So I always get this question, like, you know, like, okay, we know you're in VFX, but what exactly is your job title, VFX supervisor? Is it, do you just oversee stuff? because of the word supervisor. No, a VFX supervisor is pretty much the main point of contact for any film that has a form of visual effects. Now, when I say visual effects, I'm not just talking explosions, like I explained earlier. It could be simple things like green screen. It could be simple things where the director needs someone on set because you never know what could happen on the shoot. They might decide to change the location, or there might be something that happens that you need a VFX supervisor on set to say, hey, don't shoot it like this because it's going to cost you a fortune to fix in post. And that's another thing, this whole terminology about fix it in post, I tend to ban that on set, and it's a big no-no for any VFX people because, I mean, firstly, it's lazy, you know, if you want to fix stuff in post. But then again, you know, I've been in a lot of shoots now. I'm sure some of you guys have been in a lot of shoots where the shoots are really hectic, frantic. You know, you got the first AD constantly telling you, got to get this shot done, you know, within an hour. And so, you know, if a VFX supervisor comes on set and say, hey, you know, I need you to move the green screen because it's not going to work, you know, most of the time you're going to be told to like get off the set. So my job as a VFX soup is to make sure that I can accommodate those visual effects, to make sure that we shoot it in a way that makes it easier in post. And not just easier in terms of doing it in post, but also easier in terms of budgets as well. Because, you know, we all know that the budgets are shrinking, right? You know, whether you work on feature films, broadcasts, commercials, even music promos, the budgets are shrinking, but the ambitions are getting bigger because of films like Avatar and Gravity. Every director wants to do the next thing like that. So, you know, part of visual effects job is to make sure how we can accommodate, how we can make that happen on screen. And, you know, it's not just about doing visual effects on computers. I mean, a lot of the stuff you saw there was a mix of stuff me doing stuff on a computer. But also, I'm a big fan of doing stuff in camera. Whenever I have a meeting with a director, a producer, or a writer, or any production company, and they say, hey, you know, we got this sequence, and we want to do this, and in the script we want to do that, do we use CGI? And the first thing I ask, well, I would rather shoot it in camera. I mean, think about it, right? You shoot it in camera, it's for free. You got it in the shot. It looks real, and you can save your money on doing stuff in post that you absolutely can't do in camera. So that's always been my first point of call, is do it in camera. If you absolutely can't do it in camera, then you can shoot some of it in camera and then the rest of it in visual effects. I always try to avoid doing everything in visual effects because as liberating as it may sound for a director or a production company to do stuff in post, because, you know, you've done your shot, now you can move on, it's very costly. And VFX doesn't have to be costly. It's nothing I have to tell you guys is, you know, I remember I told you a lot of people get the conception, oh, visual effects are really expensive. You've got to have a lot of money to do visual effects, or good visual effects anyway. The best visual effects are usually planned really well. Most of the films I worked on, it's a mix. Sometimes I work on shows that it's just a complete nightmare, but they've got the money, they've got the contingency budget to compensate for the mess up they've done and where post fix it. But if I get called earlier on in the process, like a pre-production process, if we plan it correctly, you can save yourself shitloads of money and you can really achieve the vision you want. So plan, plan, plan. One of the tips I always give people whenever they want to use visual effects in their film is use some common sense, right? I mean, I don't mean that like in a flippant way, but I mean that from a serious point of view. Like if you're I remember being on a shoot a couple of months ago, and the person put a massive lighting stand right in front of the shot, and it's, you know, I'm looking in the monitor and it's slightly in the shot, and I'm going to like the first AD, I'm like, I think we should move that. Oh no, don't worry about it. You guys can remove it in post. I'm like, okay. I really think it would take 10 minutes or maybe less than that just to remove the rig out of the way so we can get a nice clean shot. So you don't have to paint it out. And the guy's like, well, we don't have time to remove it. I'm like, okay, well, if you don't have 10 minutes to remove the rig, then you're going to have 5 days of visual effects paint and roto to paint that out. You're cool. So obviously, they removed the rig. But that's part of my job, is to do that. So it's not just about doing cool stuff on the computer screen. It's about using a bit of common sense and using a bit of giving advice to the director and the DOP. And the VFX supervisor, or the visual effects component, plays a big part in films, especially today. If you look at every single film, or TV production, or music videos, or anything with moving image, there is an element of visual effects in there. Whether you see it or not, it's in there. So visual effects is now not just a service part of the show, where you shoot your film and then hand it over to post. VFX and post get involved way earlier in the whole project, which means they're an important component of the whole project. Also, you know, if you know you're going to be working on a film which has a lot of green screen, or you know you're going to be working on a show that's got a lot of creatures, it's worth getting a visual effects supervisor on board. You can either do that with a deal you have with a post company, or you can do that independently by calling a VFX supervisor. Because, yes, you're going to get producers that say, oh, we don't need the expense of bringing a VFX supervisor. We can just shoot it and see how it goes. And if it goes all right, then we don't need a VFX sup. Yeah, maybe. But most of the times, it doesn't, because of the nature of filmmaking, it doesn't. Especially when the director finds a nice, cool location, or something like that location has changed. Like, cool, let's put some green screen there, and it's really dark and all sorts of stuff. Another thing also, I get people coming up to say, hey, we're going to shoot on 35mm film. I'm like, Why? Why are you shooting on 35mm film? Oh, because it's got that beautiful aesthetic. Yes, I love film. You know, a lot of my earlier projects like Batman and Hellboy and so on, they've all worked on 35mm. And you get beautiful thing. And we all know it's not the same thing sticking loads of grain in After Effects or Nuke to get that film look. We all know that. It's about, you know, the exposure. It's beautiful. Film's beautiful. But let's face it, it is kind of dead, right? I mean, if you go in Soho, you'd be lucky to find a post house that's going to be able to, you know, print your film or get it or get it sorted out for you, or, you know, scanned or anything like that. It's an expense. We have things like, you know, the Alexa, which you saw the presentation on. We have all sorts of cameras. We even have GoPro, which I saw over there, which is like amazing. Shoots 2K. We have a lot of this stuff now. And studios and distributors want easy access to distributing their film digitally. Because we all, you know, it's all big on video on demand, iTunes, and so on. So don't try and shoot stuff on film unless you really have a lot of film stock you want to get rid of, and you have a post company that's going to be able to scan your footage for you. And there's not a lot of visual effects work in it, then yeah, go for it. But, you know, unless you're Christopher Nolan, don't do it, basically. Plan ahead. Now, I talked about planning, but in terms of bringing a VFX supervisor on board. You can go a bit more than that. You know, visual effects is getting more and more accessible every day. 10, 15 years ago, you wouldn't be able to like do a whole film on your laptop, or you wouldn't be able to do a lot of the visual effects you see in films these days. And I'm going to talk about short films in a minute. But technology has played a big part. Yep. Yeah, sure. I can make it full screen, sure. That better? Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm going to be switching between that and the video, so that's all right. It's okay. It's cool. Yeah, previs. Now, we all know what storyboards are, right? We've all done bits of storyboarding. We've all done, you know, animatics. Next thing is called previs. Previs is amazing. Previs is where you block out your whole shot in 3D. And I'm not talking beautiful 3D. I'm talking primitive 3D. I'm going to show you an example of that now in a minute. But this is becoming more and more of an important tool, because you're not just using previs to work out how to shoot your film. A lot of filmmakers are using previs to get their films greenlit to next stage. And that's very important. So now I'm talking about visual effects being used to win a budget for your film, not for making your film. Now, that's a big thing, and that's happened over the years because of accessibility with technology. So I'll show you some examples from previs. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is this is a little previs I knocked up myself. I mean, this is an idea I had of making a big action movie, and I did this, you know, in a 3D app. Very simple. You can see it's very crude, and put a grade on it, give it a Hollywood look to it. But already, whoever I was showing this to kind of got the idea of the sort of film I wanted to make. Now, this is very primitive 3D. There's no animation or anything. It's just camera animation, but it served the purpose. It showed the studio executives what I wanted to achieve, and also me as a filmmaker on how I wanted to achieve those shots. And just so you all know, I didn't end up making the film because it would have cost so much money. But hey, at least I figured it out in previs. So you go, that's previs. But also there are different types of previs. There's also previs where you really do want to show studios. Now, what you need to know, the difference between there's different types of previs. There's technical previs, which is stuff where you're trying to map out, you know, the set, which is, I'll show you that really quickly there. Okay, so this is the technical previs. I'll make this really big. I'll show you. This is me trying to figure out how many extras and marines do I need. How do I get the sense of, you know, bullet time? This is technical. You can see there's the lens information up there and all that stuff. And then, so this is the sort of stuff you don't want to show the studio this, right? Because they're like, well, is it going to look like this? We'll, you know, I mean, look, we all love studio execs, right? You know, we love them, hate them, but we need them because they fund our films. So we have part of our job as a filmmaker, or anyone's pitching as a production company, you have to make their lives easier to understand your idea. Also, how else are they going to fund your film, or at least give an interest in your film? This is where visual effects comes in. So this is a little previs I did recently for a company. I won't play the whole thing. I'll show you a little bit of it, give you an idea. I mean, as you can tell, this is a big Hollywood movie, but it's all done in 3D, all animated, just a couple of guys. So So you can see that it's got a very Michael Bay type action moments in there, and sort of thing that's going to be very expensive to shoot as a test. It's quite long, guys, so I have to cut it. But this stuff's on my website if you want to see it. But yeah, so that's the example previous. Before I quickly move on to like more previous stuff, I want to show you also sort of some breakdowns, because I'm talking about visual effects here, but I really want to show you guys the sort of pain that's involved and what sort of stuff's involved in visual effects. So obviously, you know, you have stuff like you got your typical green screen stuff, right? So here's your typical green screen stuff. That's standard, right? We've all seen this before. That's great, standard. Then I get asked sometimes, hey, we want a shot. We want a shot in between these two other shots where there's this really cool location, but we haven't shot the location, but we've taken a still image of it. So this is a still image, and what I've done in compositing, this is not CGI, this is not 3D, this is compositing. You can do this in After Effects, you can do this in Nuke, you can do this in Flame or whatever package you use. I then just put all this laid up like you do in Photoshop, right? And then you put a camera move, and already we've got a shot that you can cut. Works, done in a couple of days. Again, this is another shot where we didn't have permission to use the car. Well, we shot the car, but we couldn't have it driving around the streets. It's quite, it's an expensive car. So again, using the still image, it's all still imagery. I'm able to do this in compositing really quickly and add reflections. This is for a music promo that came out several years ago. So there you go, that sort of stuff, and same thing with this car as well. That's just a locked off shot of the guy driving. So that's one example of that music promo. Then you have like bigger films, like this is Dutch film. Now, usually when I get to work on visual effects, I get to work on fantastical films, right? Stick monsters in and be really creative. But sometimes you get to work on historical films. I mean, I worked on a TV series called Parade's End. You guys saw Parade's End on BBC Three? This was like earlier this year. Factual film. And so sometimes you get visual effects that has to be accurate, historically accurate. So therefore, my job as a visual effects supervisor is to make sure I preserve that historical accuracy. So there's lots of research. So the idea is this film. It's called Bombardment, which is about the whole Rotterdam bombing in World War I, I think. And so we shot this plate in Rotterdam as it is today. And then with visual effects, we then painted on a matte painting. And then we added fire, added smoke. But even how high the smoke was, the density of fire, all of that was documented. So we had to put that in there. Also stuff like this where they shot it and then we had to make it look like it's really blown up to pieces. Again, this is no CGI, no 3D. This is all compositing. These are just shooting different layers of footage and then compositing it together. And then you get that look, and then you grade it and you cut it in your film. It works. So that's compositing. Sometimes I work on short films. But just because it's a short film doesn't mean I should reduce the level of quality or reduce the ambition. Short films are just a short of format of the feature film, right? So they should have the same attention detail. So for something like this is for a Manchester-based director friend of mine called Jeff Wolfenden, who isn't here today. We shot this at his back garden. So this is just a model, Vanessa, a woman called Vanessa. She built it for us. And then we keyed it out. And then we put it in here. And originally we were going to have CGI water, right? But CGI water is so expensive. I'm not talking about cost here. I'm talking about, like, do you know how long it takes to simulate? I mean, when you do CGI water, you've got to simulate the thing, right? And then that could take up to 2 days to simulate. Depends how fast your machine is, right? And then once you're happy with it, and if you're not happy, you've got to go back and re-sim it because it's dynamics, right? Once you're finished simming, you're going to go render it out. I couldn't be asked for that. I mean, I really couldn't. It just takes so much time. I'm not a CGI person. So I went to Brighton and just shot loads of water elements and then comped that in together and bought some stock footage of seawater crashing on the rocks. And you grade it, you composite it, and you get this. Done in a couple of days. I mean, I'll make it sound easier. I've been doing this for quite a while. But my point is, when you're doing visual effects, don't automatically go for CGI. Think about the other things. Think outside the box. Use stock footage. Man, there's tons of stock footage out there you can buy for $10, $20, $30. I bought some aerial photography going over New York for this film that I'm working on. To shoot it in a helicopter would have cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds to get out there. That's excluding flight tickets and permits and stuff. Go on stock footage, buy the footage, then you track on your visual effects elements. Done. Think outside the box. One of the many Yeah, this is good. You'll like this. So this film, I mean, some of you guys might have seen Hellboy too. Okay, so it's quite a big Hollywood film. Now, this is not a visual effects shot. They shot this film, and there are visual effects on the other shots, but this is a shot that isn't visual effects. And I was asked, so I don't know if you guys can see, but around here, on the corner of his mouth, it's broken. The prosthetics is broken. So someone on set must have been under a lot of pressure and said, look, let's move on. We could fix it in post. And obviously I wasn't on set for that. I was just a composite that day. So using just the footage they gave me, no reference material, nothing, I had to digitally reconstruct his mouth. This is what I'm talking about, visual effects being used to save the day. So if I play it, you'll see what I mean. See, he's eating. There's all sorts of stuff going in there. It's a nightmare to paint in roto, but it was essentially digital cosmetic. And yeah, I mean, it took like 5 days to do. I mean, this is what I mean. It can be costly if you don't sort things out, like fix your set. So they can, yeah, it's nice and smooth. And this is all done in Shake. No one uses Shake now. Everyone uses Nuke. But this is all done in compositing, paint and roto. Nothing special, no fancy plugin, just pure hard work and labor. Usually I also get asked to do set extension. So here's an example. They shot some stuff. As you can see up there, it's a studio. And then again, using the exact footage, no additional footage given to me, I then extend it up there. But then, you watch this in the film, you're like, oh yeah, they shot a big wall. No, someone digitally extended that. So these are the sort of like invisible effects I'm talking about, right? Where there has been visual effects, but there hasn't been visual effects for the audience. And you get stuff like this, where they shoot, obviously you can't shoot a baby in front of a tiger, so we shot some stuff on blue screen, and then you comp it all together. I mean, I'll give you a little tip. If there's any students here or anyone that wants to get into visual effects and you want to be compositors, you can go to the best school and learn compositing. Great, but you'll just be learning how to use the tool. If you want to be a good compositor, look out there. Buy a camera. Take some still photos. Because when you're doing visual effects, you're replicating what you're doing with a real camera. That's all you're doing. So pick up some photography skills. Learn the tool. That's all you need. Train your eye to be able to tell the difference between a light shadow and a dark shadow. Look at the way things react on surfaces, how the light react, how the shadows react. That is compositing. That's what you're doing in visual effects. So that even includes putting the imperfections of cameras. Something you get lens distortion, something you get like chromatic aberration, dirt on the lens. All those little things you've got to put back into your shot because the computer doesn't know what you shot. So to make something look real, you're replicating real life, and that is use your eyes and be aware of things around you. You don't necessarily have to like take on like really expensive courses. Here, this is another example of this is visual effects at extreme now. This is a French film called Ne te retourne pas. Okay, so I was supervised on the show, and I was brought in late in the show, so they shot the film already. And I was told, let me make this big so you guys can see what I'm doing. Whoops. Yeah, so the idea of this film is this woman, she's writing a book, and everything around her is changing, including the faces. But it's kind of like a gradual change, so through the whole film, slowly bits of her face starts changing. Everyone around her starts changing. So, as you can imagine, it's a crazy visual effects film, but it's not supposed to look like a visual effects film. So what they did was we digitally scanned the woman's head. So this is original footage. This is Sophie Marceau, famous French actress. And this is a digital scan of Monica Bellucci, really famous Italian French actress. And the idea is she's slowly turning into Monica Bellucci. So what you're seeing here is mid-process, which is why it looks kind of freaky. And you know what French filmmakers are like? They're really like out there. So it was quite fun. So as you can see there, this is full extreme. I mean, this is like, we scanned the head, we tracked the head on it, we had to paint it back in the face. It's crazy. And you can see she's moving all over the place, and we have to make sure it all tracks correctly. There's tracking marks on the face that needs painted out. They put her hair back on, the shadow, the light, everything. Here's another close-up here, see? Then this CG face, and then mix it in there. It's all compositing. But obviously, we have CG. So you can imagine a whole film like this. So it's a lot of footage. And, fair to say, I think it was one of the most expensive French films made, even though there wasn't even monsters in it. So you can see there the sort of type of visual effects I get asked to do. Sometimes I get asked even more drastic things. You thought that was drastic. I even get asked to do weather change. Now, this is classic. I remember when I first got given this assignment for a commercial, many, many years ago, for a commercial. The director was like, yeah, you guys can grade it, right? Just like color correct it, make it a bit of blue, and you can make it look, oh no, that's the thing. It was, because it looked really, this is supposed to be sunny, by the way, it's supposed to be like Bahamas. Clearly it doesn't. It looks like brighten on a bad day. So I was told to make it look happy and very summery. So the director's like, oh yeah, just crank up the values, make it bright, brightness of contrast. No, like I was telling you about being a good composite and being a visual effects artist, to look around you. We all know if this was a sunny day, the shadows would be different, right? You'll have sparkles on the water. The shadow different, the shadows on them will be different, the highlights will be different, everything will be different. So it's not just a grading job. It's not, dry for wet or day for night or night for day. It's not that. So what I had to do was I had to rotoscope. We all know what rotoscoping is, where you cut out every single element. So I had to cut out her shoes, her shorts, her legs. Everything was cut out for me to achieve something like this. So you see there, the shadows all painted differently, even the shadows here. Speck on the water, even the sky was changed. The clouds are made to look square because that looks like an O2 advert. But yeah, this is sort of what visual effects have to do, is to make things that couldn't be done on set, be done in post. So it's not just about the glitzy stuff, it's also about the horrible stuff we have to do. Okay, so quickly go back to lovely presentation. Cool. Okay. So far I've talked about visual effects. Now I'm going to jump onto even exciting stuff. I always get this question by people go, so once you become a VFX supervisor, what's next for you, right? I mean, you've been an artist, you've become a senior artist, become a supervising artist, you work your way up the ladder, right? Like with any industry, you work your way up the ladder, become senior. What happens after VFX supervising? Now, I don't know if you guys heard of a director called Gareth Edwards. The guy did a film called Monsters. Really amazing director. He did a film called Monsters. It was a great film. He's now making the next Godzilla. Now, there's loads of directors, people like David Fincher, the guy who did Seven, Fight Club, Social Network. Gore Verbinski, the guy who did Pirates of the Caribbean. All those films you know of, but not director. These are all ex-VFX people. Now, there's a reason why all those films are ex-VFX people, because they have loads of VFX in it. So I got to a stage in my career after 12, 13 years of doing visual effects and video games and stuff. I thought, I want to make a film. I want to be a filmmaker. I didn't go to film school, though. So how do I become a filmmaker? What I knew was, as a visual effects supervisor, I was already involved in the whole filmmaking process. Part of my job was I deal with stuff on set. I'm involved in the story process. I'm involved in script breakdowns. I'm there 4 in the morning in the edit bay, talking to the exec, trying to convince them not to cut that shot because we spent so much money working on that shot. So I'm already in that zone, and I want to tell stories. So I did a short film called Project Kronos, which was a science fiction film, which I'll quickly show you a little clip of. Where is it? Here we go. And this was done kind of like a documentary. Because of my experience working on documentary films, I thought it'd be cool to make a documentary film, which isn't a documentary, it's a mockumentary.
We were able to translate all this information into visual imaging. We are just converting thoughts or memories into images.
This had obviously caused controversy and criticism from leading scientists and scholars worldwide. I mean, on what basis is a brain donor selected for the mission? What we have to bear in mind is that this human conscience would represent humanity if contact was made with other life forms out there.
A secure, heat-proofed outer coating, a ball with coolant inside was the means of transport for this journey. There were no boosters or rocket fuel or anything like that. It was designed to merely float like a bubble, recording memories.
So you used the stock footage here I was telling you about? Using stock footage and augmented it with visual effects. So I didn't need to do a CGI space shuttle. I used the NASA footage, which was public domain. Paint out the NASA logo and then put CGI on top of it.
It's remarkable that this signal is the encryption of memory data recorded by human brain on its journey through our galaxy to reach us. I was literally shaking when we realized where the signal was from.
We are actually watching Kronos dreaming about the journey it took and what it remembered.
watch the rest of the film on projectkronos.com. Bit of plug there. But yeah, so no, my point of showing you this was this is something I did entirely myself. This is me on that laptop here you're seeing there. And I did the whole short film using my visual effects experience because I had years of visual effects experience, compositing, and you notice there's not many CGI in there as well. The only CGI thing is the little pro ball, and then the rest I did in After Effects. But my point for showing you this is because I was talking about accessibility, right? This technology now is available to every one of you guys. You can just go to adobe.com and download it, for example. You just need to have that idea and how you express that idea out there. Nothing in there is complicated. It may look high-end and complicated. It's not. I mean, like I said, I use the NASA footage. And one of the rules of NASA footage, if you guys don't know, is it's public domain. But you cannot use footage with the NASA logo on. Fine, I'll just paint it out, make my own NASA. So I created my thing called the Space Agency. So, cut a long story short, I released the film in April. And I was signed to a Hollywood agency within a month. Now, that's kind of awesome, right? Because usually, if you're conventional way, you make your film, you submit to festivals, you go and knock on all the agency doors, try and get an agent, then you get a manager. It's a process. I didn't want to do that process. I was lucky. I got signed. And now, from what I understand, here's a little tip for everyone. A lot of the big studios, they have a little team of people, and all they do, I shit you not, all they do is scout YouTube and Vimeo. They look for the latest talent. Now, we all know there's big movies, the big tentpole films like Avengers and stuff, they all rely on visual effects, right? Then you rely on visual effects for the bus stop posters, you rely on visual effects for the trailer. They make shitloads of money. It's the box office thing. So I made a sci-fi film with lots of visual effects in it. Made sense for me to get signed. So I got signed. And this means that this kind of shows an example. And that's how Gareth Edwards, the guy who did Monsters, he did a similar thing. He made a short film, he made a feature film, then he got signed. Which means that if any of you guys have these big ideas, I remember 10 years ago, I wouldn't think of doing this. I'd be like, oh God, I need shitloads of money to do that, But this is a sci-fi film being done on a laptop and being picked up for Hollywood and now being made into a major feature film. And I'm now a filmmaker because I did this at home on my laptop using the tools that are available for the whole Adobe Creative Cloud thing is like 40 quid a month or something. If you used to do this several years ago, you're thousands of pounds. The only thing I spent on that was music because I can't do music. So I get the experts to do music. If I'm spending amount of time to do visual effects really well, I should do the audio really well, right? So, just lost my slide. So, let me quickly show you some stuff. Okay, so that's another thing I want to tell you also. It's all good making a really cool film. It's great. But the point of making your short film is so that it gets seen. You want people to watch your movies. Now, I know loads of talented filmmakers out there that make these really great films. They send them to festivals and that's it. No, you have the web, you have Vimeo, you have YouTube. Use it. It's free. You want the mass to look at it. You don't want just festivals to look at your film. Yes, submit it to festivals because there's always studio producers going there to look at stuff. And yeah, you get recognition, you get awards. That's great. That's fantastic. Don't knock it. You should do it. But I didn't want to do all that because I did make I made my first film and I sent to festivals and it was all right. But I thought I want to build an audience. And that's another thing. When you're a first-time director, no one knows you. You may make the most amazing short film or have the most amazing script, but no one knows you. No Hollywood studio knows you. You have to get the studio aware. And to do that is through visuals. So you make a really cool short film, you make a visual film, put it on Vimeo. But it's not just upload it on Vimeo and YouTube and hope millions of people will watch your film and go viral. No, you have to put the effort. You have to go and blog it. You have to go and send it to other bloggers, send it to magazines, send it to websites, get it out there. So my point is now, as a filmmaker, you're not just a director, a writer, a producer, a visual effects artist in my case. You're also a PR person. You're also a distributor. So you have to wear the distribution hat. It's great because now as a filmmaker, you can pretty much be a mini production company yourself. And that's one of the reasons I got all this exposure. I mean, this is some of the exposure I got, but director's notes, wrote stuff on it. Firstshowing.net, Hollywood Advice. It goes on. IO9. And all of this helps. This all builds up credentials for you. It all helps you get your Hollywood deal. Variety, big Hollywood thing, announced that it's getting made in a feature film. So this is being made in a feature film. So I'm out at the stage now writing scripts, having meetings in the studios, and developing my first feature film. Remember, last year I was a VFX artist that wanted to be a filmmaker. I decided one day to get off my ass and make a film on my laptop using the knowledge I have, which is documentary filmmaking, feature filmmaking, composite, and visual effects to make film. I didn't go and make a rom-com. And you notice it's very documentary related, very visual effects. I use the skill set that I have and the love that I have for science fiction. You can make a horror film. You can make a monster movie. You can do whatever you want. It's your imagination. But don't limit yourself saying, oh, I need the most expensive camera. You'll be surprised at the camera. I shot this on a really cheap DSLR. It's not even like a Canon. It's like, I think it's a Panasonic GH1 or something. I mean, it's a good camera, obviously, but it's not expensive. I didn't shoot this on the Alexa. I didn't shoot this on the Red or anything like that. It's about the storytelling, right? And that's what it is. And that's another thing I want to tell you guys is, it's all great me standing here saying, VFX is awesome. VFX is like going to make your film look amazing. It will not fix a shit script, period. Your script is the most important thing. The script is king. Have a good script. Lucky for me, you know, I write a lot of scripts, and I've got loads of screenwriter friends. They kind of looked over stuff. And also, you know, you have to be open to show your stuff to people as well. And so I use visuals to tell my story. So now that I'm a film director or writer, as you say it, is that a fire alarm or something? Okay. I'm now at the stage where I am now creating, every week I'm doing pitches, right? I'm going to pitch the studios. So this means I have to create content. Now, like I said earlier, these days a script is not enough to get your film made. Trust me, I've tried it. Studio executives don't have time to read 110, 120 page scripts from new filmmakers or untried and tested directors. So you need to give them something a bit more. Visuals. Now, I'm not saying go and make a full-blown visual effects film. Use Photoshop, man. Just mock some images up. I can't draw to save my life. But I have a different style. I knock images up together. I get stuff from Google and mock it up really quick. Visuals, visuals, visuals. You know, filmmaking is a visual medium. Present your stuff in a visual medium with your script. The script is the script is basically the dialogue, right? It's the screenplay. It's the structure of your film. But at the end of the day, the studio, if you're talking to people like Fox or Lionsgate, all the big players, they want to know one thing. Of course, you've got to have a good script, obviously. They want to know one thing. Can we sell this film? When I mean can we sell this film, is this marketable? Is this saleable? Can we make a trailer? Because we all know trailers is all about, you know, that's what gets the people into the cinema, and you get the box office hits and you get your money and stuff like that. Can we make a good trailer on this? And if it's not exciting at this stage, you're not going to be able to convince them to make it exciting later. So as a first-time filmmaker, use all the tools in the bag. And luckily I've got VFX, but you guys have access to VFX. Audio, don't skip on audio. Buy sound libraries or get a sound design friend to put stuff together. Make it like the best thing ever. You're making a trailer. When you're pitching a film, you're pitching the trailer. You're not pitching the film. I know it's bad, but that's it. I know filmmaking is an art. It's all about the structure and the storytelling. But if you want to make a big movie, you want to make a big science fiction movie like Oblivion or whatever, it's the trailer. You want to get the studio execs going, wow, I want to know more. Then you give them the whole big spiel about the story and the characters falling in love and blah, blah, blah. But this is where visual effects comes in. Now, remember I was telling you guys about visual effects is accessible. Talking too fast here. It really is accessible. You can go to adobe.com and download a demo trial. You can just download trial of everything. These days, software are getting cheaper, hardware are getting cheaper, and the education is getting cheaper. You don't have to go to a really expensive visual effects school to do visual effects. I didn't go to visual effects school. I didn't go to filmmaking school. I just went on the web and learnt loads of stuff. Thank God for YouTube, right? So you guys can do that as well. Yes, there's the will. Now, there are two types of people. There's people like myself and other people out there that go out and do the visual effects ourselves. But then there's others that don't want to do the visual effects. Fine, you shouldn't want to do the VFX. If you're not comfortable, don't do it. But team up with people that can. Also, going all the way back to my first part of the talk, where I say if you're approaching a visual effects company and you've got a film, you want to do visual effects, you want to get a budget for it, the advice I would give is make sure you have clear, concise notes. Don't come up to a VFX company and say, listen, got this really cool film, got this effects, sort of like this, sort of like that. That sort of attitude will cost you loads of money. Be very concise. You're a director, for God's sake. You have to get your vision across. Do not leave VFX and post as the last thing. To be honest with you, I don't even know why it's called post-production. Seriously. Because with a lot of the visual effects stuff is handled way before the film's even shot. Stuff like previs, stuff like, working out the shots, stuff like pitch viz, short films, proof of concepts. That's all done way before. So why it's called post? Maybe for the audio. But this is the future. This is the future, guys. And the future of filmmaking means that every one of you guys in this room is able to make a film. I'm not saying go make a sci-fi film. If you can, yeah, go ahead. Awesome. You can make anything you want. The tools are accessible. You walk around there, you know, there's some really cool kit out there. But the internet, man, the internet is amazing because you're able to get your knowledge off the internet. You're able to get your software off the internet, trials. The hardware is getting cheaper. You can use Dells, Macs, whatever. The education, everyone's writing tutorials, man, and they're free. I write tutorials. They're on YouTube. Google how to track something. Google how to stabilize shot. It's there. Get all of that together, and you can also distribute. You can also put your stuff on the web, and billions of people will watch your film. Whereas 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you had to rely on an agency. You had to rely on a distributor to get your film out there. So that's my point. So I know it's a bit of a weird talk from visual effects to filmmaking, but it's all part of the same thing, man. It's all part of the same thing. And that's pretty much it, actually. I want to take some Q&A from you guys, though. Questions? What do I use for my previews? I can use Maya. I sometimes use Maya, but these days, not my previews. I take images. I cut still images. Like I take a photo of some people and I cut them up and put them on cards. And in After Effects, I use 2.5D. So you can do. And if you really want to show animation, you want to show a plane or 3D, or your camera's doing all this sort of stuff, then you can use Cinema 4D. You can use Mode. You can use any 3D app. You don't really have to use Maya, which is a really high-end app. You can use anything. As long as you're able to move the camera, put some primitive object. You can even go to, you know, like Turbo Squid. Go to Turbo Squid, buy some objects. If I wanted a plane, of a shot of a plane doing all this, I want to previs it. I wouldn't go and model it. God, it'd take me ages. I can't model it. I wouldn't get an artist to model it. I have to pay him like X amount of money. Go to Turbo Squid, download the model. It's like £5 maybe, and put it into C4D, Modo, or any 3D app, and move the camera, and you got your previs. So yeah, you can use anything, man. They saw me on Vimeo. They saw it on Vimeo. Yeah, exactly, dude. That's what I'm trying to say. Make your film, put it out on Vimeo, put some hard work in. Don't just put it on Vimeo and hope, fingers crossed, someone will watch it. Get it out there. Send it to all the blogs. So mine's a science fiction film, right? It's about space travel. So I contacted NASA. I contacted all the space agency blogs. I contacted sci-fi nerd sites. I contacted Sci-Fi Magazine. All you got to do is send them a link. Hey, check this out. That's all you got to do. Twitter it. And it became viral. And then studios go, oh, what's this? This looks kind of cool. Oh, he's a VFX artist. Oh, wow. This film could be a feature film. Tried and tested. It's not a risk. We know what we're getting if we give them a couple of million or whatever. And there you go. So, yeah. Hi. Good question. Well, when I was at uni, I did a course called Media Communication, which was more to do with journalists and computer programming. Because when I went to uni, there wasn't really courses out there that teaches visual effects or anything like that. I was just, I had a dream. So basically, I worked in video games. So 2-3 years maybe, I did cinematics. You know all the stuff that you see that says not game footage? That stuff I did. So, but that was a good path because I was a CG. I did everything. I did visual effects, I did composite, I did CGI. There wasn't really like a broke away like comp 3D art. It was all like in one. And then over the years, game technology got better and better. Cinematics got more cinematic and filmic. I decided, well, I'm actually doing film in games. Why not just actually go into film? And then, 5 years later, I ended up working at a company called Moving Picture Company and worked on a film called 10,000 BC. And I started off doing rotoscoping. So like 6 or 7 months, I was on this film called 10,000 BC, cutting out grass, cutting out people's hair. It was horrid, because all you're doing is cutting stuff out, right? But I tell you now, it's the best experience ever, because I did that, still today, when I look at a shot, if I'm a supervisor on set and looking at a shot, I'll be like, don't put that hair over there. Please put that hair on the green, or put a white card behind the black hair, because it's going to take ages to rotoscope. But I know because I spent months rotoscoping. So it's really important. So that was my path through video games and through visual effects. Today, you can go to university and learn that stuff. But I tell you now, you can go to university. They'll teach you the theories. They'll teach you the tool sets. Very important. Not knocking it. But whenever I'm hiring someone, here's a tip to any graduates out there. Whenever I'm hiring someone, I look at their personal work. Yes, I'll look at the university final year project. It's probably the same as all the other guys in the classroom that's done it as well. It's usually one fixed coursework. I want to see what this guy has done outside of the facility. I want to see, because from there I can see what his passion is. I get CVs and showreels, and I remember interviewing one guy, so junior, and I interviewed another guy who worked on Harry Potter. I hired the junior guy. No, not because he was cheaper. It's nothing like that. Basically, because he had something in there that was passionate. He was really good at character animation. You can tell he was really good at it, and he loved doing it. I'm like, wow, that's his core strength. He showed it in his work. So your personal work is so important. Like I said, it's all accessible now. You can do your personal work at home. You can do your little short film. You don't have to make a 15-minute film. Make a 2-minute short film. Something that demonstrates your skill set, whether it's compositing, whether it's CGI, whether it's animation. But just do it. Hi. Yeah. No, absolutely. The frame store guys are absolutely right. But we've got to remember, frame store is a facility. Big facility. So their pipeline, you have 3D artists or modeler. Then you have a texturer. Then you have a shading artist. So they would ask you to pick one. But if you go work in commercials, like a company called Glassworks, for example, or you go work for a company like Jellyfish Pictures, where I worked at, generalist is really cool because it's a small boutique company. They don't have a massive pipeline. So it always helps to have an artist like yourself to I'm able to do a bit of modeling, able to jump into texturing. And also, it means that you can own the whole shot as opposed to owning a little tiny bit of the shot. Now, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying, don't go work at a frame store. By all means, go for it. But for me, I went to work at a facility because I knew I wanted to become a compositor. Even though I started as a generalist as well when I started off. Yeah, when I was in games, I did everything. Because in games, you do everything. You did modeling, shading, comping. But obviously, we moved into film. They're like, got to pick one. So I picked comping. And the reason I picked compositing is because I like the idea of finalizing the shot and motion blur the CG guys' work. But no, if you work at a bigger facility, look at what they're asking for. If they're looking for a modeling artist or a shading artist, then you may be a generalist, but there might be some stuff in there you can break out and show, I can do modeling. But if you really do love generalists, and you really like the idea of doing everything and owning the shop, which sounds like you do, then go for a smaller company. Go for people like Jellyfish Pictures, Glassworks, Boutique. There's tons of them out there. And personally, my best experiences are with the smaller companies. It's more intimate. You get to learn quite a lot as well. But if you want to look at bigger movies like Gravity and stuff, then the big facility is the place. Hello.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. It was great. Do you still think you have to work down in London and Soho to kind of get into VFX, or?
If you want to work on the bigger films, unfortunately, yes, because they're all in Soho. And there's a reason why they're all in Soho, because it's a historical thing. Most of the studios traditionally are based in Soho, and all the big studios like to go into Soho for meetings. But hey, Salford Media now, Salford's got its own big media center, and you're going to see a lot of broadcast shows happening. And also, I've worked worldwide. A lot of my work's in London, but I've worked all over the world. Worked in Belgium, Amsterdam. You don't have to be in London. If you've got the skill set, if you really have the passionate, really want to do visual effects, and you've got a good show reel, and you've got a group of people, set something up. Get a group of friends, set something up. You don't really need to have an expensive studio these days to do visual effects. You can do a lot of stuff remotely. And there's studios all around the world that's remotely doing this stuff. So you can do that. But to answer your question, the bigger films are often done in London, Soho, yeah. Or you go to LA. Actually, no, LA don't, because LA is kind of drying up. So, yeah. So it's on Soho, yeah. The new Star Wars film's been made in, so it's a good time to apply. Hi.
So how do you get your short film out there without sounding like you're spamming people? Hey, look at my film. I bet they get that 10 million times a day, right?
Of course. There is an art to it. And of course, originally the first time I thought, yeah, let me do that. But no, you don't want to spam. Well, lucky for me, I had a manager who saw the film previously through some people that he saw on the web, because I did a private screen on Vimeo. You just got to be sensible, man. Someone can tell if someone's spamming because it's copy and paste, right? Tailor your email. So when obviously have the middle bit, which is the same on everything else, right? Here's the link, here's some credentials, but the top bit and the last bit, personalize it. It's worth it, because then it doesn't look like spam. Also, it has a personal connection. So when I emailed IO9, the big science fiction thing, I said, hey, I'm a massive fan of IO9, been following the work. I see you covered loads of space documentaries or space issues. I made a film recently about space. Check this out. That's it. Don't write long emails as well, because that looks like definitely a spam. But customize it. But yeah, the top and the end. That's the only thing I can say. And also, be selective who you send stuff. Don't just spam every single person. Look for the top science fiction. Like if you're making a science fiction film, right? Look for the top sci-fi film sites and email them, because then that gets filtered. The minute my stuff went on IO9, all the other smaller sites got it. I didn't email the smaller sites. So that's the trick. Go for the big ones first, and then they'll filter out. If your film becomes viral, it becomes viral. Any more? It's your chance to rinse me, so take it.
Thank you. How feasible is it to produce this kind of thing via the cloud?
Via the cloud?
Yeah, or even not early yet?
Yeah. To be honest with you, the cloud's amazing, for software, but we all know it's all down to bandwidth, right? And unless we have super fiber optic, it's going to be very hard. I mean, what I did on Project Kronos is I had audio work done in Italy. So I was able to link my Premiere file on Dropbox and then had the guy update the Dropbox automatically and update my Premiere file. But if you're talking a big 4K, 2K images, especially for like a 15-minute film, it's not that feasible because you spend most of the time waiting to download stuff. I mean, the idea is great, right? It's a really great way, work cloudless and work on a cloud, not dependent on the machine. The idea is great. It's just at the moment, I don't think our bandwidth supports it. I think if you're in Finland, you're all right because they've got like amazing bandwidth. But I think for now, yeah, it's I wouldn't do it. You can share. Put your source material on your main drive. I mean, I never work on a machine. I work off an external SSD card. So my machine crashes, I get another machine. So work externally, and then only stuff that you're sharing. The thing I work on cloud is script. I use something called Adobe Story, and that's cloud-based, which means that so many people can log in and make notes. Like my manager makes notes, and that's all cloud-based. So, but anything heavy like a like a 2K or 4K footage, don't bother. Okay, I guess that's it then. Thank you so much.